think it's time for a little coffee break. And we just had the Australian Barista champion in. And guess what? He didn't finish his espresso.
Don't do it.
And so I've got his DNA here. I can have... am I going to become the Australian Barista?
From the lips of a champion.
It tastes better because his lips have been on it. I feel like I'm the next Australian Barista champion right there. Oh, beautiful. Jack, what a... not only wealth of knowledge, but well-spoken and just a nice guy.
So humble.
So humble.
Yeah, it's great having him in. He had so many great insights for us. So thank you, Jack, for sharing those.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of taking that from such a, 15 stores is bloody wild, but also some really applicable like information if you're just running a smaller cafe, of those kind of tips that you can take. And I think our big thing is think about what your cafe is, what you stand for and what you want to offer before creating your coffee menu. Don't just kind of stick to the norm. One thing he jumped on that I think you were a big fan of was freezing coffee.
Yeah, well, it's kind of come up more and more. So, this whole episode was about, the coffee menu and what you should put on your menu and what are the implications behind it, right? And look, honestly, I think it's such a big topic. We dabbled into different areas of it, but, there's probably a few more episodes we could do. But I was surprised at how strongly Jack was a proponent for freezing of coffee because it's been kind of a niche implementation in a lot of venues where they're freezing small doses, pre-weighed doses, and then having like a broader coffee menu. You can almost have it like a wine list of coffee where you got pages and pages of coffees there. But he was a really strong proponent saying like, if you haven't done it, you should go and consider implementing it in your cafe.
It makes so much sense. One of the things I brought up was just the ability that it makes it more affordable and there's less risk involved if you are buying a more expensive lot or more expensive coffee. You can extend that shelf life a little bit of like how long you have it. Now, do you know how long? Because I've heard lots of different things, right, about freezing coffee. People are like, some people have said it tastes better once it's frozen, or that when they're grinding it, they're going to grind it straight out of the freezer or they're going to let it defrost. Jack was good because he was quite honest with it. He was like, look, it is going to have some impact on the coffee, freezing it. But overall, I think it's a positive thing to be able to do. How long do you think you can keep a frozen coffee?
I think you can keep that frozen for quite a long time. Like, I don't know what the outer limit is, but like a year or something. I actually think what Jack was trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jack, just drop us in the comments here, but is that the issue is if you take the coffee out of the freezer and put it back in again,
right,
that you kind of get degradation. And he didn't quite detail it, but I'm pretty sure what they're doing is taking the frozen coffee and grinding it straight away.
Yep.
So there's no defrosting kind of moment where the structure of the coffee gets really changed by kind of going, his analogy was great and quite sickening of if you put a lettuce in the freezer and you take it out and it starts going sloppy because all of the way the water expands the cellular structure breaks it down. And so I think if you are implementing this in a cafe, you take the frozen coffee and you grind it straight away. And I think you won't have that change in the grinding. And in fact, there's been some studies to show that it improves the grind distribution and the way the coffee is ground when it is frozen because it's a little bit more brittle.
Yep.
So I think, the summary of this is freezing coffee is not going to be for every single cafe, right? You've got to have the equipment for it. And he kind of listed off, essentially, you need a vac sealer or some way of kind of creating the small doses of coffee. And you need a freezer that can get down to frozen temperatures pretty quickly, an open door one, but you can use a chest freezer as well.
As he said and I think I'd read it, it's like the colder the better. It's like ideally if you can get it down quicker and colder, that's good. But it sounds like any freezer would kind of work. So, it's an interesting thing for home baristas to try as well if they were to get a really expensive coffee. Because sometimes it's hard, right? If you go to a cafe and you see a really expensive bag, you're like, can I afford this? But if you think maybe I take that bag, I dose it out into 10 or whatever, filter coffee doses. If you freeze them, it's kind of cool that throughout the next year, you can just whip that out whenever you want.
Yeah.
It's not just like, I now have to drink this coffee every single day for the next week to get the most out of this, expensive bag of coffee.
Yeah, I think it's got some really cool applications. I think that there's some good wastage considerations there, or lack of wastage that you can have, because you're not, dialing in all the time. You're not kind of having coffee that goes a little bit stale, or people serving out slightly subpar, expensive coffees.
Yep.
Just because they got to move it through.
Yep.
I think there's some considerations around sustainability and packaging waste that I kind of go, especially with vac sealing in little plastic things, the amount of plastic that's just getting chucked out from that.
Yep. Do they reuse the little tubes?
The tubes can be reused, so that's great. And as Jack said, one of the critical things is not having too much headspace or the air gap between like the coffee and whatever vessel you're packing it in.
And that was for two reasons, right? That was for one, oxidization, but also there's moisture within the air. So as you freeze, it's going to allow more moisture.
You can kind of get condensation happening. Probably again more if you take it out and let it defrost. It's going to get that condensation. But yeah, we've moved a long way from when you and I first started making coffee, where they're like, never put it in the freezer. Now everyone's like, oh, frozen coffee, that's kind of cool.
Which is so funny, because it was like the specialty coffee nerds. The people who'd put coffee in the freezer was your grandma. Or was, someone like that. And all the coffee nerds would be like, disgusting. And now we're telling him to do it.
Yep.
Grandma, give your little specialty grandson or granddaughter a slap in the face now, because they deserve it. One thing that was interesting he was talking about was the move of bar workflow. He was talking about being on the World Barista Championship stage and some of the things over the years that have trickled down into like now a mainstream kind of use. So the first one was probably like, the EK was the big one, that grinder working its way down into bar workflows. The scale becoming, back when I started, we were just pulling a lever on a grinder and, whatever fat would fit inside the portafilter, that was the right dose.
Yep.
And then also we're now seeing WD uses the auto comb to kind of do that. He was talking about, and I wonder if it'll ever make it, I probably wouldn't have thought a WDT would make it down to the general masses of a cafe, but vibration. He puts his portafilter after WDTing on a vibration plate, and it kind of like levels it out. I was trying to think how you could see that on mass scale. The only thing I could think of was a grinder actually having a little vibration like after it doses your coffee.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been WDT'd then, which he said was bad. So I don't know.
He actually said it made his coffee taste worse if he hadn't heated it before he put it on the vibration plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, some of these tools. They're obviously, again, niche, and we'll see how it kind of flows through. But, again, if you are serving out, and we're talking espresso here, not filter, but if you're serving out espresso of really high-end coffees, that's probably the ones where you want to use every advantage to say, oh, this is a $20 cup of coffee or whatever it is. You want to make sure you're doing it to this high-level performance. So, yeah, but more bench space in cafes, it's always a premium bench space. So, I just need some room for my vibration plate.
Now, we posted a video. Oh, actually, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to order my sushi, so I'm just doing it right there. Hey,
order.
There we go. Yeah. Place order. That's ordered. Now, we posted a reel the other week from Chris Mayberry's episode talking about Eversys, and it got some good traction, but there was one comment in particular that I wanted to bring to your attention. So I said in the video, the best espresso machines in the world are making the worst coffee, talking about Eversys making like Coles coffee. This guy wrote in and said, another coffee fun fact, the worst people in the world are making the best coffee. Sad but true. My barista is an absolute miserable but damn it, can that boy make a cappuccino? So the question is the more miserable and annoying your barista is, the better your coffee is going to taste?
No. If we've learned anything from Scott Rao, it's all about that tiny percentage of salt. So the amount of tears is the perfect ratio to bring out the flavor.
Customer tears.
No, I mean, I'm sure he's right in some circumstances, but we are pushing for hospitality here.
Yes.
And baristas that are friendlier. But my thought is more so, if you've got someone miserable behind the bar or working there, my biggest thing is red flag for the company.
Yeah.
Because normally 90% of the time, if you've got miserable staff, it means that it's probably not a great working experience.
Yeah. And Oh my goodness. Yes, I think the sustainability of that business model, just hiring miserable baristas, maybe it worked in like the grunge 90s or something where they're just like, whatever,
Yeah.
too cool to talk to you. But yeah, hospitality.
I feel like bad workplaces as well have created like a Stockholm syndrome because like I'll post stuff where it's like serving milk with your pitcher at a cafe and being like, once you've steamed it, that needs to be emptied and you need to use fresh milk. You can't leave the old milk in there and just top it up with milk. And then you've got baristas yelling at me online being like, well, do you know how busy I am? And I'm one person making 1,000 coffees a day. And how could I ever do that? And you piece of crap and blah, blah. And I'm like, don't yell at me. Your boss is putting you in a terrible situation. You shouldn't be in that situation. I'm sorry that your boss is making you deal with that. But don't yell at me about just stating a fact. You know, that's a workplace problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the way that we build culture in our coffee businesses and what we say is important to our staff about that experience. I mean, Chris on the podcast was so great in talking about like, I want to find people who are going to create a great moment for our customers.
Right. I am paying you to have conversations with our customers and create connections. That's what I'm paying you for.
Yeah. And so, of course, you got to have like business considerations around that. As we were talking about, it can't be like have a half-hour conversation when there's a line of dockets out the door. But to the same extent, he's very clearly saying that the culture here is about let's look after people. I'm empowering you to do that. I'm giving you a directives that this is important to us as a business. And now you can go and make the decision. It's the same as if a cafe owner said, we want to serve consistently great quality coffee to our customers. If that's the top line kind of culture that you're being very clear about saying, then you're saying, don't re-steam milk, don't do this. And hopefully you're treating your staff well to enable them to actually do good things for your business.
Absolutely. Now, guess what?
What?
We got some coffee news.
Oh, dial it in.
This just in, a 747 has been redirected. Sorry, that was just my newsreader. I was just trying to get into that. No, here we got hot news straight out of Panama. I got a question for you, mate. I got a question. Would you pay $1,200 for a single espresso?
Tell me more.
The most expensive coffee in the world just sold at auction for over $30,000 green to someone in Dubai. The winning lot is a washed Geisha grown at Hacienda La Esmeralda, and the coffee scored a record-breaking 98 out of 100 points. This coffee is worth double the value of gold at the moment. What do you think? Would you pay that much for a coffee?
No, I wouldn't.
If you had millions of dollars, would you pay that much?
Maybe if I had millions of dollars. But even then, I think there's a real challenge, especially with espresso, for things to not go perfectly, right? There's so much variation and variability to control. You know, I think, would I be able to taste that? It's such a fascinating discussion, right? Is like, what is the value of this? And ultimately, the value is what the market will pay for it. Do I think that I would appreciate it to that expense? Probably not. And this is coming from someone who knows that La Esmeralda is like the foundational kind of home and birthplace of like the Geisha movement, and they've done incredible things on their farm. And I have no doubt this is an exceptional coffee. But obviously these prices become highly inflated because they're going through an auction process. And so there's that scarcity effect happening.
Well, of course, for like a much, much cheaper price, you could probably get a coffee that is like 2% not as good. It's just because it's in that upper echelon kind of marker of like, that makes all the difference. And if this is being talked about as the best coffee in the world, it might only be the best by this much, but the price difference of this little much can be a lot.
Yeah, well, we even had Jack just on the podcast talking about his competition coffee he's taking to the world stage is a $400 a kilo coffee. So, you know, we're kind of talking different things here.
Yeah, but he's putting it in instant coffee. So there you go.
I will say, I think that it's great that the coffee industry and coffee in general is starting to be discussed and priced like this luxury item. Luxury does mean that not everyone's going to get to it. Certainly not many people are going to afford to be able to buy this coffee, but it allows for the conversation to be stretching and exploring what's the difference between that and our $4.50, $5, $6, $7 kind of flat white, and kind of say, well, that's a bargain because look how high it could go.
Yeah.
So we've got to have the upper points to bring the base up.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about kind of competition coffees, the World AeroPress US and Oz competition have announced their dates.
Pump's incoming.
Now, we got Liam that we were talking about maybe trying to enter in one of these. And we were like, we need to give him a year of training. So that's next year's event. I'm just kind of thinking, well, do we just throw him in the Melbourne one now, just with no training, no expertise, and just absolutely, maybe we just have to come up with one just generic recipe that you could help us do and just throw him in the deep end. If you can finish not last, I will be very impressed.
Look,
what do you think?
Down. I'm absolutely down.
He's game. You should do it. It's going to be exciting to watch these comps. They're always a lot of fun. They're kind of a little bit more free form than maybe some of the more formal competitions I'm involved with the World Barista Championships.
Yeah, it's more about community in these ones than that end result. We're seeing it here in Melbourne. In the States, we're seeing it being represented across Seattle, Los Angeles, New York, Austin, and then I think the finals in San Francisco. So very cool.
It's going to be fun.
And the final little bit of news that we heard is that my dog just came running in. Hi, Woody.
Hey,
hi, Bubba.
puppy.
So no one is talking about the fact that La Marzocco is secretly powering DeLonghi's profits. So DeLonghi posted $1.82 billion profit, and 14% of that profit actually came from La Marzocco and from Eversys in their professional market. So this is thanks to things like the Mini, the Micra, and these luxury collabs they've been doing with the likes of Porsche.
Yeah, I think this is super cool. I mean, obviously it's a huge company, it's a lot of profits, but the fact that it's being driven by these two very different kind of companies and offerings in the coffee industry, one being kind of this classic commercial high quality specialty machine with La Marzocco, and then the other side being the fully automated, super automatic, but also really trying to improve quality with the Eversys. I think there's these two different pockets that are kind of strong and growing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then DeLonghi is well known for their Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, of course.
We were talking about it as like the Ocean's 11 of coffee. We've got Clooney with Nespresso.
Yep.
Then we've got Brad Pitt coming in with DeLonghi. Who's Breville going to pick up? Are they doing Julia Roberts or maybe a bit of Matt Damon?
Oh, they should.
The Matt Damon Breville.
I don't know who suits the Breville brand a little bit more. It might
maybe
be
Julia Roberts.
Maybe Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty. I think I'd go and get a Breville if Julia
and
Roberts.
And what a smile!
Was
Imagine the smile after the sip of espresso. Just bing.
That's it.
And now live, we have this week's coffee market update. We have our reporter in the field, Ollie from Condesa Collab. Ollie, tell us what's happening.
Thanks, guys. As usual, always a pleasure. This week, the C market is at 356.20. That's a big jump from last week's lows. A dry March in Brazil and recent light frosts have been reducing yields and affecting bean quality for the 25-26 crop. Brazil is nearly finished and Colombia has completely done. Weaker US dollar means that some farmers in Brazil are holding back stocks, and combined with this, the tariffs from the US to Brazil causing roasters to buy stock from the certified warehouses rather than import it into the US, which is driving stock levels down, causing the price to go up. High Robusta prices are also acting as a resistance level, keeping the C price higher than anticipated. My only piece of advice is, if a price works for you, don't gamble, lock it in. And that's it from me. Always a pleasure. Back to you guys. And remember, it's just coffee.
Alrighty, I think that brings us to the end of the coffee break. That's been amazing. So good having Jack on. I hope everyone liked it. Will this come out by the time we do the episode? Yes. No, it won't. I was gonna sizzle.
It was a secret not sizzle.
I was gonna sizzle. Well, I'll sizzle you as part of our creating the cafe menu series or the coffee menu series. For the signature drinks, we've got a pretty big deal coming in. We got Morgan Drinks Coffee, Morgan Eckroth, joining us for an episode, social superstar, US barista champion, second place in the world.
All-round legend.
So get excited for that one. I was going to say send us in some questions if you had them for her, but you know what? It's going to be too late. So too bad.
But on that note, though, aside from that new episode, if there's any other topics or people that you'd love for us to feature on the podcast, please let us know. Drop us an email, drop us a direct message. message.
We got
Anyway,
Host
getting in
Milan
touch.
coming up. We've got
Yeah.
the World Barista Championships coming up. So there'll be a lot of content around that. And we'd love to hear what you want to hear as well.
Yeah.
They can get in contact with us. Have you been here long enough, Ben, that you can list off this email?
hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com.
Hey!
Drop us that
There
email.
it
Go
is.
type.
And if you love these episodes, share it with a friend. We love getting new listeners in. And, if you're listening right now on Spotify, iTunes, honk that button like I'm going to honk Ben later.
What?
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.